This is the footage the Ministry of Defence, or MOD, tried to bury. It's a story that starts not in some top-secret government archive, but in a dusty box at an estate sale in 2023. Inside, a former signals intelligence officer, a man literally trained to find needles in haystacks of electronic noise, found a very different kind of needle. A small, unassuming 16mm film canister, labelled with simple stencil letters, RM DARTMOOR TRA EX 72/03 Real 7B Royal Marines Training Exercise 1972. He probably expected to see grainy footage of young soldiers navigating the bleak, beautiful landscape of Dartmoor. What he found was something else. Hidden in that reel are a few dozen frames of film that, according to every official record, simply shouldn't exist. It's footage of what looks like a 7-foot-tall shadow stalking a unit of Britain's most elite soldiers. This digital ghost was uploaded online, and for less than 48 hours, it was a sensation. Then, it vanished. It wasn't pulled for a copyright claim. It was taken down because of a formal cease and desist letter, a letter that cited the United Kingdom's Official Secret Act. The message couldn't have been clearer. The story was not to be told. This tape was not meant for public eyes. For decades, it was just a whisper in the barracks, a ghost story. But now the forbidden frames are back, and tonight we're going to analyse all of it. The footage, the declassified memos, the eyewitness accounts, to try and uncover the truth behind the tape the MOD tried to bury forever. To understand what might have happened in 1972, you have to understand the place it happened. Dartmoor, located in Devon. It's a vast, untamed expanse of about 368 square miles of open moorland. It's a place of raw beauty and crushing isolation. Granite tors claw the sky like the bones of ancient giants. Treacherous bogs can appear out of nowhere, and thick mists can descend in minutes, disorientating even the most skilled navigators. This landscape is steeped in centuries of myth. It's a place said to be haunted by spectral hounds, malevolent pixies, and ghosts in horse-drawn coaches. It feels ancient, and at times deeply unsettling. And it's this exact environment, challenging and unforgiving, that has made it the perfect training ground for the British military for centuries. Since the early 1800s, soldiers have been sent to Dartmoor to test their limits against its terrain and its weather. The Royal Marines especially have forged their rock-hard reputation on these moors. They come here to master navigation, survival and warfare. The ranges at Oakhampton, Willsworthy and Merivale are active military sites where live ammunition is used to forge commandos. Red flags by day and red lamps by night warn the public away. The official danger is unexploded ordnance, but the story of Real 7B suggests another kind of danger, one that isn't listed on any warning sign. In the early 1970s, at the height of the Cold War, training was relentless. Royal Marines were the tip of the spear, ready for any environment on Earth. The training at the Commando Training Centre at Lympstone and on Dartmoor pushed them to their absolute limits. During one such routine exercise, Exercise Dartmoor 72/03, a camera crew was supposedly tasked with documenting the training for the archives. They shot a series of film reels. Most are exactly what you'd expect, but one of them, reel 7B, apparently captured something impossible. The man who claims to have found the film in 2023 was no stranger to government secrecy. As a former Royal Corps of Signals NCO with a background in electronic intelligence, he says he recognised the military markings instantly. He bought it for a pittance, thinking it was just a forgotten piece of history. It was only when he had the fragile 16mm film professionally digitised that he realised what he might actually have. For the most part, the film is exactly what it claims to be, an unremarkable military training documentary from 1972. The picture's grainy, the colours faded like an old photograph. You can see a section of young Royal Marines, maybe from 45 Commando, known for their mountain and Arctic warfare expertise. They're in olive green combat uniforms, carrying the L1A1 self-loading rifle, the standard issue weapon of the time. They are yomping, as the Marines call it, across the desolated moor, their packs heavy, faces set with determination. The camera operator captured the era perfectly. We see the Marines practicing navigation with a map and compass, setting up a patrol base, running a mock ambush. The landscape is a character in itself, bleak, misty, and huge. It's a perfect time capsule of Cold War military life. For the first 12 minutes of the reel, everything is normal. The Marines look exhausted but focused. The weather is typical Dartmoor grim, with a low mist clinging to the ground. There is zero hint of anything out of the ordinary. And then it happens. The shot is wide. The Marines are taking a quick break near a prominent granite tor. Some are checking their gear, others sipping from canteens. The camera pans slowly across the group and then zooms out, probably to capture the sheer scale of the landscape. It's a standard documentary shot, but as the camera pulls back, it catches something on the very edge of the frame. At first, you barely see it. A flicker of movement against the grey rock and mist. It's easy to dismiss. A shadow? A trick of the light? But when you watch it again, you realise it's something else. The movement, it's wrong. It's too smooth, too fast. It doesn't move like a person. This is where the story gets really strange. Let's analyse these frames. The entire sequence is less than 10 seconds long. As the camera holds that wide shot, a tall, dark figure seems to detach from a shadowy crevice between two large boulders, maybe 200 yards behind the resting Marines. The first thing you notice is its height. By using the rocks and the soldiers for scale, analysts of the footage estimate it's at least 7 feet tall. It's unnaturally thin, a stark black silhouette against the grey mist. There are no discernible features, no face, no clothes, just a uniform, void-like blackness. The entity takes 3 long gliding strides, moving parallel to the soldiers. The movement is silent, fluid, and impossibly fast. It covers about 30 feet of uneven, rocky ground in less than 2 seconds. A trained human, especially in military gear, couldn't cross that terrain with such speed and grace. The motion is less like a physical object and more like a shadow being cast across the land. It seems to have no weight. It doesn't interact with the ground so much as flow over it. And here's the critical part. None of the Royal Marines seem to notice. Their attention is on their squad, their gear, their own fatigue. This thing is in their periphery, a silent observer. After its 3 strides, the figure pauses behind another rock, partially hidden. For a beat, it's perfectly still, a vertical slash of darkness against the stone. Then, just as silently as it appeared, it recedes back into the deep shadows of the tor and is gone. The camera operator may have been the only one who saw something. Just after the figure vanishes, the camera makes a slight, jerky pan back toward the spot, as if the person behind the lens was trying to get a second look. The camera lingers for a moment, but finds only empty rock and swirling mist. Then the scene cuts. So what was it? Skeptics would immediately say it's a man in a suit, a hoax by the film crew. But the proportions feel wrong. The limbs are too long, the torso too thin. The speed and fluidity of the movement would be incredibly difficult to fake on that treacherous ground. Others might suggest an optical illusion, a trick of the mist and light. But the figure appears solid, and at times it seems to move in front of the rocks, suggesting a physical, 3-dimensional object. Its colour is a deep, uniform black, darker than any natural shadow in the overcast light. This doesn't look like a visual artifact. It looks like something was really there. The footage alone is startling, but what elevates this from a simple cryptid sighting to something far more sinister is the paper trail allegedly discovered with it. The story goes that the man who bought the film also found a small, water-stained folder of photocopied documents. And if they're authentic, they suggest the MOD didn't just know about this creature, but they actively worked to conceal its existence. The first documented is described as a field report from the exercise commander, filed under Exercise Dartmoor 72/03 Post-Action Report. Most of it is routine, but one section titled Equipment and Comms Failure is chilling. The report supposedly states, and I quote, "During the 48-hour exercise period, units operating within grid references SX 59792 experienced intermittent and severe failure of radio equipment. Both Larkspur A41 and B47 Manpack radios suffered complete signal loss for periods of up to 30 minutes. Furthermore, several members of the exercise reported experiencing what they described as transient visual disturbances and a pervasive feeling of being watched." Transient visual disturbances, a persuasive feeling of being watched. Severe radio failure with Larkspur sets, which were the standard VHF and HF radios for the British Army at the time. On its own, you might blame fatigue and the spooky Dartmoor atmosphere, but it gets worse. The second document is supposedly an internal MOD memo from March 1972, just weeks after the exercise. It's an order from a high-ranking official to immediately collect all developed film stock and associated negatives from the exercise for special review. It explicitly names Reel 7B as being of primary importance, and in the margin a handwritten note, Persec briefing required, treat as Organic Anomaly. Let's break that down. Persec is military shorthand for personal security. A Persec briefing is a security warning, and Organic Anomaly, that's not standard military jargon. Anomaly means something unexplained. But the word organic is key. It implies a biological entity. They weren't looking at a weather balloon. they believed they were looking at a life form. The third and final document is claimed to be a copy of the 2023 takedown notice. It isn't a standard copyright strike. It's described as a formal letter from the Treasury Solicitors Department on behalf of the MOD, and it doesn't claim copyright. Instead, it directly cites the Official Secrets Act, stating that the unauthorized release of the footage is prejudicial to the safety or interests of the state. Think about that. The Official Secrets Act is a law designed to stop espionage and the leaking of sensitive national security information. Why would the government use a law designed for spies to suppress a 50-year-old training film? Why would footage of an alleged shadow man be considered a matter of national security? The only logical conclusion, if this is all true, is that the entity in the footage is real, and its existence is a secret the Ministry of Defence has been keeping for over half a century. The evidence points towards a cover-up. But why go to such incredible lengths? The answers might be back on Dartmoor, and the coordinates from that 1972 report, SX 591792. This grid reference places the incident right inside the Willsworthy firing range. We know these ranges are closed to the public during live firing exercises, but according to local researchers, there's a small patch of land here, about 1 square kilometre, that seems to be a permanent no-go zone. Even when the red flags are down and the rest of the range is open, this specific area is often still off limits. The official reasons are inconsistent. Unexploded ordnance surveys, sensitive environmental monitoring, ground instability. But some believe these are just cover stories. It leads you to a chilling theory. Maybe the MOD isn't just hiding a film. Maybe they're actively managing a containment zone. This brings us to a final, more recent piece of this puzzle. A supposed leak from the 2024 internal MOD environmental report for the Dartmoor training area. An appendix in this report allegedly mentions persistent and anomalous electromagnetic interference coming from the exact coordinates of the 1972 sighting. The report recommends the area's restricted status be maintained indefinitely, noting it is unsuitable for sensitive electronics. This perfectly fits with the intermittent and severe failure of radio equipment described back in 1972. The theory is that the entity, the Organic Anomaly, emits a powerful electromagnetic field. This would not only explain the radio failures, but might also be why the footage itself appears so distorted. If this is true, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. In 1972, a Royal Marine unit stumbled into the territory of an unknown biological entity, a creature that is elusive and possesses abilities that defy our understanding of physics. Realizing they had a phenomenon they could neither explain nor defeat, the MOD may have done the only thing they could: bury the evidence, swear the witnesses to secrecy, and quietly cordon off the creature's territory under the guise of routine military operations. For 50 years, they've been routing exercises around it, turning away hikers and managing a secret quarantine zone in the middle of a national park, just hoping that whatever stalks the mists of Willsworthy Range stays right where it is. So, what do we have? A piece of film, supposedly lost for 50 years, showing a 7-foot entity moving with impossible speed. We have alleged military documents from 1972 describing equipment failure and visual disturbances in the same spot, labelling it an organic anomaly. We have a modern-day legal threat using national security laws to suppress that same footage. And finally, we have persistent claims of an unexplained exclusion zone on Dartmoor that gives off anomalous energy readings. The pieces fit together to form a disturbing narrative. The Ministry of Defence didn't ban this tape because it showed a ghost. They banned it because it showed a tactical problem they can't solve. It reveals the existence of a territorial, biological entity whose capabilities are unknown. An entity they can't control, living inside one of their most important military training areas. The secrecy isn't just about preventing public panic. It's about hiding a 50-year failure to understand or neutralise a potential threat. They didn't bury a ghost story. They buried a failure of containment. The forbidden footage of Dartmoor forces us to ask a terrifying question. What else is being hidden from us, just out of sight, in the wild and lonely places of the world? And what happens when a secret that's been kept for half a century refuses to stay buried any longer? What do you think the Royal Marines encountered on Dartmoor? A creature from folklore, something from elsewhere, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below.